Hello, YouTubers, friends, and compatriots. Bootlicker shows Nestle serves peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And let's go to Iran. And turns out, in spite of all the fear mongering, in spite of Israel and Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu's campaign to scare everyone in the world that Iran was going to get nuclear weapons and bomb the shit out of Israel, and in spite of the fact that we have a United States Congress that essentially, certainly the GOP Congress, acted essentially as traitors, having Netanyahu come here and circumvent the United States president and speak before Congress, lobbying for his position of preventing Iran from getting any nuclear weapons. And now this treaty has happened, this agreement has happened. And first of all, the one thing to note, of course, is that Iran is not getting all the immense economic relief that the Republicans in the base seem to have feared, that somehow Iran was just going to overnight profit immensely off this agreement and there wouldn't be anything in it for the U.S. But it turns out they only have limited access to the corporate world because they're still forbidden to use U.S. financial institutions to do any sort of operations. So their hands are still tied, although that Boeing agreement just went through apparently. So anyway, the wheels are turning. But more importantly, it turns out that according to all reports anyway, Iran is more than cooperating with its agreement and fulfilling all of its requirements. The IAEA says a year later that Iran is in full compliance with this agreement that was made back in July 2015. And so it's a little over a year later. They have reduced their enriched uranium stockpile from 12,000 kilograms to 300 kilograms and shipped a bulk of it to Russia. They filled the core of the Iraq heavy water reactor with cement. They've removed nuclear material from Fordow plant, and they've dismantled 2/3 of its 19,000 centrifuges from the Natanz facility. So anyway, I know it's not that easy to tell whether they're complying or not, but the fact that we have inspectors in there, and here we go with that talk about inspectors on the ground. We inspect, just like Iraq previously, but we have inspectors on the ground, and they say that all these requirements are being fulfilled. And just as I suspected they would be, I mean, Iran has every interest in complying with this, and this whole talk of a bomb is a moot point. And in fact, that very that very point came up in one of the Colin Powell emails, because he talked about the fact that what would Iran do if they had a bomb? Would they just polish it? They would obviously would have to take some time to amass some materials and technologies in order to have some bombs, and more than one, and have a delivery system and everything else that goes along with it. But anyway, I would suspect that they are indeed cooperating, and like I say, it just makes sense that they would. And I know there's a lot of people out there that talk about, oh, well, we can't trust them. We can't trust those sneaky Iranians. But the fact is that Iran has more of a track record of honoring its agreements and not being aggressive with its neighbors, more so than a lot of people that are in these discussions about this nuclear program in Iran. And the other fact is all this one has to do is look at history, and we've had, oh, those sneaky Japanese, and oh, those sneaky Chinese, and oh, those sneaky Germans. And I guess anybody that is considered an adversary of the United States and doesn't get with the empire is somehow sneaky. And I beg to differ. I'm a very supportive American, but I also know that America is one of the sneakiest countries in the world when it comes to geopolitics, foreign policy, military operations, and the like. And certainly nuclear programs. And that is also borne out by the fact that as long as we're talking about Colin Powell emails, he acknowledges that the United States government knows full well that Israel has 200 nuclear weapons. So we get a number, and they're all aimed at Tehran. So who's the real threat? Israel having 200 provable, well-known, and deliverable nuclear weapons sitting in Israel, pointed at Tehran, or Iran, a country that doesn't have any nuclear weapons, that their non-existent nuclear weapons are pointed at Tel Aviv, I guess. But anyway, So we have this acknowledgement, and so there it is, pretty sneaky too, because everybody in the world knows that Israel has nuclear weapons, and so we're not kidding anyone by going along and pretending that they don't. And interesting as well that there is now a lawsuit against the United States for supplying foreign aid to Israel, because according to the United States' own laws, if a country has nuclear weapons and a country does not sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, then the U.S. is legally bound not to supply them with aid, and yet we do with Israel. So anyway, I digress. Now I'm talking about sneakiness, and before I wanted to talk about Iran in full compliance with their nuclear agreement with the international community thus far. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.